Hi, I'm Carol Watson, and I am the Chief Thriver at Thrive.com, and I want to welcome you and have you join us for another episode of Thrive Talk. We have today as our guest Sabrina Prince.
Hi.
Thank you so much for joining us.
You're welcome.
Sabrina is the SVP Account Supervisor at Neon, and she has an amazing story. Neon is a healthcare pharmaceutical agency, and I want to have her talk a little bit more about her current role before we get into the background.
Sure. So I am a Senior Vice President in Account Services at Neon. We are specifically healthcare, so pharmaceuticals, as well as hospital or wellness. At Neon, my job is comprised of working with the marketing teams at pharmaceutical companies to achieve whatever their goals are for their brands, whether they're at the stage where they're new drugs and they're just launching into the marketplace, so we need to educate customers about it, or if they're brands that have been on the market for a while and now they're newer entrants where there's lots of competition and they're struggling to figure out how they differentiate themselves. So I work with those brand managers to figure out strategies for that, and then bring those strategies back to the agency where I have a team of people that I work with who develop the messaging or the creative that brings those strategies to life to communicate whatever those benefits are to the physicians or to the patients that would be using the products.
Awesome.
It's very cool.
What are some of the major clients that you have that we may recognize?
I currently I've worked with Pfizer. I've worked with Gilead, which is probably a company that maybe the mainstream customer doesn't know, but they have many drugs for HIV. I've also worked with biotech companies like Biogen or Genentech. And I currently work with United Therapeutics, which is an interesting new biotech company in the North Carolina area.
Wonderful. So it's an amazing office. We have great work in the background, so you get a sense of what they're doing. No secrets on the wall,
Yes.
so don't pay too much attention. But we really wanted to give you an idea of what the industry experience is like in an average day. But tell us a little bit about how you got into this.
It's an interesting story. I definitely wasn't one of those people that went to school and said, I want to be in advertising one day. As a matter of fact, I wasn't really sure what that was beyond pretty pictures in a magazine. I was one of those people who wanted to be a doctor one day. I was a neuroscience and behavior major. I worked in a laboratory doing research for Alzheimer's disease. I was working on animals, rats, etc. Became allergic to those animals, go figure, and was actually hospitalized and needed to figure out a different career path. I worked in the clinical realm for a while. I worked at a psychiatric hospital where I managed clinical trials for diseases like schizophrenia or bipolar disorder, major depression. And that was really exciting. And a part of that I think kind of triggered the advertising bug was that you had to figure out how to communicate to the area hospitals that trials for these medications were happening and why it was important to consider patients who maybe are on therapies that aren't working to enroll in these trials. So the promotional aspect of it became interesting to me as it mixed with the science. And then after that, I started actually temping at Pfizer in the marketing analytics group. And through a friend of a friend, I started working at a healthcare PR agency, which then spun off their advertising agency. And I've not looked back since. It's been keeping me engaged in the science, the neuroscience, the curiosity of the science, as well as the business challenges. If you have a curious mind, you will enjoy advertising. Sorry, everybody.
A little darkened.
I'll remember to move around some more so the lights don't go off.
If you see us dancing in the background, you know why.
Yes. So that's what got me into this career. So I wasn't the traditional path, but I think it also speaks to the fact that advertising is always looking for people coming from different shared experiences that are looking at a problem in a different way. And that's always going to bring you the innovation that your clients are looking for.
So beyond the day-to-day work, how does it charge you? Why does it excite you to be in this field?
Specifically, healthcare advertising. It's the fact that I really have a tangible ability to impact the healthcare decisions that a customer is making. And when I say customer, that could be a physician, who is looking at you coming into the office, or your mom or your child, and saying, okay, Carol, you have hypertension. Sorry, you just do right now. And yes, life is stressful. You have hypertension. I'm thinking about a medication that would be appropriate for you, your lifestyle. Maybe it needs to be something that you take once a day because you're busy. You're not going to remember to take an older drug that maybe is 3 times a day. I've read about studies that say, particularly for African Americans, this drug is probably better for you. I'm going to recommend this drug for you. And your experience on that drug will be more positive. Mm-hmm. I play a role in looking at that data, figuring out who the target is, a Carol, and figuring out how to communicate to you. So when your doctor prescribes you that drug and they give you the brochure that you take home and you're reading, those words that are telling you how to use it, the benefits of it, maybe how to take it, potential things or side effects you should look out for, we're helping you create. And that makes you the more informed, empowered customer, and that's what keeps me going. Making sure that people aren't just blindly stumbling through the healthcare system or experience. So it's altruistic.
Yeah, that must be very personal.
Yes.
Very, it really helps to have a role in a career that you feel like you're making a significant difference.
It's really nice. And I'd say that I've kind of become a jack of all trades and diseases. Mm-hmm. I'm sort of like a resident, not really doctor. Where if my mom is prescribed something, she'll say, hey, do you know what this is? And I'll generally know, or I'll know who can get me that information. And it's a nice feeling to be able to impart that information on people. Yeah.
So as a person of color, and the demographics we know are changing, and the disease states for different ethnic groups contribute to what they need. Mm-hmm. How does that come up in your role, in your work? Specifically, how to communicate or target those? How do the conversations segments come up for clients now? And how does your expertise and your knowledge, and from a personal perspective and your passion, play out in that work?
One example I can give is one of the brands that we actually manage and that I lead is a hepatitis B product. And hepatitis B, based on our research, and you always do a level of research when you begin working with a client, disproportionately affects the Asian American population. It also affects, exactly. And so they're also, wow, I did not know that. Lots of those amazing moments where you're actually taking in knowledge. But one of the things the client is struggling with is that population, or the population that's disproportionately affected, are usually immigrants. So they're coming from other countries infected. And in those other countries, the disease is so endemic that it's almost in a misperception conceived to be like a genetic disease, one that everybody just has because everybody just has it and there's nothing I can do about it. There's also a language barrier. So figuring out how to educate those patients that there is something you can actively do to help yourself to live longer with this disease, to potentially, slow the progression of the disease so you can be there for your families, for your jobs. That's something that we do a lot of market research around. Because this community is an immigrant population where English isn't their first language. A lot of that is through translators or through their physicians. But based on our learnings, we really realized that a lot of what we needed to do to get to that community is grassroots. So figuring out where they are, what are the connections that they have to the community. So are there learning centers, or are there family centers where usually there's a lot of congregation? And how can we bring the material to them in those areas? So those are ways that we specifically look at reaching particular customer targets. As an African American, obviously, I appreciate the sensitivities of the fact that church or family are historically big in our community. And if you're really trying to talk about a topic that people don't want to talk about, but they need to, those intimate environments are usually the most impact is received. So looking for those nuances, or just looking at it through that perspective, or bringing that perspective to the client, is beneficial, and I think creates the type of advertisement that actually changes behavior.
What are some of the trends that you're seeing with clients nowadays? What should we know about in terms of marketing needs and challenges?
I think it's refreshing to realize that clients are now understanding that customers are a lot more complex, that the market is a lot more diverse. And by diverse, I don't just mean ethnically diverse. I mean the experiences, the socioeconomic backgrounds, the education level of the people that are actually appropriate and wanting to use these products is diverse. And they're really thinking about that first before communicating. So they're doing a lot of market research to really understand who are those customers, where are they, how do they think, who are the people that actually influence them. So historically, if it's a male customer, they're not the ones that are going to the doctor. It's their wife that's nagging them or their mom that's nagging them.
That's never going to change.
No, exactly. No, unfortunately not. That seems to span all ethnicities. So figuring out who the influencers are, and maybe there's a sort of backdoor around the way to get the message around. Clients are more aware of that, and I think they're actively or rather proactively looking at that research and integrating that into their thinking from the beginning versus say, I've developed an ad and it has a face of a person smiling in a certain shade, and in order to make it diverse, I'm just gonna apply various crayon colors. Now they're really thinking about those nuances and appreciating the unique intricacies of the customer and the value of those intricacies when they're developing communication materials.
Awesome. So let's kind of shift over to the career piece and
Yes.
What is it like to work at Neon? It seems like if you guys were here, you would see that it's a
cool.
really cool space. What would people be surprised to know about, a pharma agency in that industry?
I think it's interesting. Every time my mom comes to visit me, I reference my mom a lot. She always asks, "Do you just sit around and talk all day?" Because there's lots of interaction. Exactly. There's a lot of interaction, and it is a creative environment in the fact that it's open, the space is colorful, the conversations seem to be casual. So it's an interesting mix of what appears to be fluid conversation, but in a very structured manner. So I think if you're curious, intellectually curious, people use the word creative, but what does that mean? It means, do you look at things a different way? Have you always thought, why doesn't this happen? Do you always want to crack the code in a puzzle? Do you have a vision and you're constantly thinking of visions of things? That sort of environment is what an advertising agency is like. And the only difference is who you're solving the problem for. Is it a pharmaceutical company or is it Lexus? I like pharmaceuticals because I'm invigorated by empowering consumers to be, to make the best decisions about their health. But it's a fun place to work every day. You're never quite sure what a day is going to be like.
Awesome.
Yeah.
So tell us a little bit more about what is it like to be a leader here and in this industry?
It's very interesting. I will tell you that maybe until 3 years ago, I was like, oh, wait, the leader person is me. I'm not supposed to wait for no one's going to tell me what to do.
There's no tap on the back.
I'm actually the person that is supposed to lead and walk forward and people follow me. It's challenging. It's exciting. I think definitely the idea of great responsibility requires great ownership and accountability. There's a lot that you're responsible for, but there's also the opportunity to set a direction for something, to set the tone for my teams, to embody in a different way the culture and the values of the agency, and show creativity or show intelligence, show visionary thinking with the Sabrina model or with the Sabrina vibe.
Your own style.
Yeah, and I think that's important for people to see, that there isn't just one way to be a leader in an advertising agency. There isn't one way to show up in an executive room. Certainly you're always going to show up buttoned up. You're always going to show up prepared. You're always going to show up early. But you can show up with a certain perspective that's different. And I think it's the perspective that when you leave the room, the people talking are like, that person, that Sabrina was really interesting. I'd like her to talk more about my business, or I'd like to talk to her more about my challenges because she brings a different point of view than I have. And I think that's the value you bring to them as an agency or as a leader. And I think that inspires the people who work with you to follow you to that next innovation. And sometimes if it's a uphill climb, they'll climb with you. And on the days when you're relaxing, then you enjoy the relaxation even more. So it's a fun challenge.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
I know as an account person, you're kind of at the center of everything.
Yes.
So you have to create that inspiration.
Coach, I'm champion, I'm mediator.
You get thrown in the front line.
Yeah,
with the
exactly.
client.
I take the riddles. Yeah, exactly.
So what have you learned about you just managing your reputation around all of that? Because it's so crucially important in that role.
It is very important. And being that sort of liaison for everyone, you really appreciate the fact that I heard someone say the reputation is the one thing in the marketplace that doesn't fluctuate. Like it's the currency that doesn't fluctuate. And it really is currency. It is a level of gravitas or value that precedes you. And managing that is extremely important because your reputation will be the thing that will stand when things start to shake around you, when some market event happens or the timeline that was 3 months is now 3 weeks. Or when the wheels of the bus are falling off and you have to call someone and say, hey, can you send me another bus? The fact that Sabrina asked for you to send me another bus is going to let that person, do you a solid.
So what contributed to that courage and confidence?
Experiences, a couple of scraped knees, recognizing the value of being where you say you're going to be, of showing up when you say you're going to show up, of being consistent in that, the discipline of that, and also being receptive to learning the experiences when it doesn't go exactly as you planned, which is never going to happen. I mean, rarely can you tie anything up in a bow and it's like beautiful outside of, the TV. But I think those things have you look back and realize that I was able to accomplish this. And I did that not by myself, but through a team of people and really thinking about the team of people that you work with, drawing on those ideas, not being afraid to ask for help when you do need it and realize that that's not a falling or failing for you, but it's rather just wisdom that you need another point of view. Those are the things that I bring to the next adventure or challenge, and a lot of faith. And
sure.
and that takes you there. I mean,
were there any people or processes that you felt really contributed to the development of you as a leader?
I definitely contribute a lot to my scientific background. I have a different approach than the typical, I'd say, advertising person, where I spend a good amount of time assessing people. I'd like to believe I'm like a student of people. And just trying to figure out what their actual concerns are, because there's things that people say with their mouths, but they're the things that you can also observe based on their behaviors.
Any examples?
That's a good one. I think there are various moments with clients where they've expressed a desire for this brand to be successful. And every client wants their brand to be successful, but understanding what success for that particular client means, asking those questions, realizing who the person is that defines success for that client. Is it the marketplace like I think, or is it your boss? And if it's your boss, okay, then let's talk about how I can help you look successful in front of your boss. So just being in tuned and intuitive about those things has been worthwhile.
Awesome. So we have a question. So we have one of our Thrive participants wants to know if there are any colleagues, are your colleagues open to using targeted media such as African-American digital properties, or do you find that they're using the standard sites hoping that cross-cultural consumers will come? What do you think about that?
I would say if by colleagues they're referring to my agency colleagues, yes. If by colleagues you're referring to our clients, I'd say no. And it's purely out of ignorance. I mean, what they expect us to know is their customers. So, for example, back to the hepatitis B product, if this product disproportionately affects Asian Americans and that is the primary person that we're going to be communicating, it behooves us to understand and immerse ourselves in that culture to understand what media they're consuming, where are they going, who are the vendors that participate in the consumption of that media, and offering those as recommendations. So if we don't, we're remiss, and they're going to miss opportunities. And learning as much about those vendors and having those vendors provide us with information is a crucial part of our job.
Awesome. So a final question.
Yes.
I think we're running out of time, so if there are any more questions,
Sorry,
I'm sure
everybody.
she'll be happy to share and give some feedback. We want to know what makes you thrive.
What makes me thrive is always getting on a plane and going to a place solo. I do lots of solo vacations, and I think back to the what makes you feel confident. They're kind of the Sabrina physical challenges I do, where I go to a place I've never been before. Usually a place where I don't speak the language. I've been obsessed with Latin America, but now I'm starting to know Spanish, so that's not working a bit. You should go, Latin America. But I like being reaffirmed that people everywhere are generally going through the same struggle. People everywhere respect the currency of being polite. People everywhere respect the currency of wanting to have family, to be able to eat, to be able to sleep, to be able to live comfortably. And those things sort of feed me and remind me of the customer, like people.
Any favorite spots?
I love Argentina. I love Italy, and it has nothing to do with the food, though. Those two things are probably
there are a lot of things in Italy.
And wine and food, and wine and food, and fashion. And I do love Spain, and I want to go next to South Africa. Yeah.
Well, thank you so much.
Thank you, everybody. Thanks,
if there are any more questions, please put them on the chat room, and you can watch this as much as you want. It will be on demand. But thank you for joining us.
You're very welcome.
And look forward to more successful, amazing things coming from you. Enjoy the rest of your week, and do the protest. You know, we gotta keep it up.
Occupy those bridges.
Occupy the bridges. Take care, everyone.
Bye.
Bye-bye.